Hey everyone, I'm Benjamin, and welcome to my book club. Today we're going to talk about Lord Valentine's Castle by Robert Silverberg. And, well, this one didn't land for me. First up, I'll just mention this is book 6 of my fantasy reading challenge. A challenge where, as a sci-fi and horror reader, I'm trying to get into the genre of fantasy. And I'm reading and reviewing 10 fantasy books this year. You can find the playlist with all of them, including the first 5 reviews, right up here. I think it's really funny that I'm attempting to get into fantasy as a mostly sci-fi reader, and a third of the fantasy books I've read for my challenge so far are kind of a little bit sci-fi. Lord Valentine's Castle takes place on the world of 𝕤𝕤𝕝. It's this gigantic planet filled with alien races and humans living together that once colonized the planet from space. They often talk about old Earth and other spacefaring empires that exist. But 𝕤𝕤𝕝 itself has sort of receded in technology. It's lost that spacefaring technology. There are remnants of it. There are remnants of ancient technology like hover cars and electrical lights and stuff that still work. But mostly we're back to sort of a fantasy, maybe a high fantasy sort of level of technology. Our story follows Valentine, the titular Lord Valentine, basically. He wakes up one day at the edge of a city with no real memories of where he came from or who he is. He seems to take this fairly in stride. He's a happy, charismatic fellow, and then through a series of prophetic dreams, he discovers that he actually is the Lord Valentine, the coronal, one of the two kings, basically, of 𝕤𝕤𝕝. Through some dark magics, his soul has been taken from his body and being placed in this other body, and there is now an imposter on his throne. We follow him as he sort of journeys across the land, collecting companions and compatriots in an attempt to get his throne back. He starts off as part of a juggling crew, which is really delightful, and it made me almost want to learn how to juggle again. And then we continue across basically all of 𝕤𝕤𝕝. Starting off with the things that I like, the main thing that I liked, and it's not even close, is the world building. The world of 𝕤𝕤𝕝 is the star of this book. 𝕤𝕤𝕝 is this gigantic, vibrant, interesting, living world full of humans and aliens, from the four-armed, giant-furred 𝕬𝕠𝕠𝕜𝕤 to the small, tentacled sorcerers of the 𝕓𝕠𝕠𝕜. They live together and they have such interesting societal and political systems that the world building is very clearly the focus of this book. Silverberg clearly loves this world that he's created, and it really shines through on the page. He spends much more time talking about this world and setting up the locations than he does doing anything else. And it really comes through from the deserts in the center of one of the continents, through the giant trees of one of the forests that they go through, to the cities and the different societal lifestyles in the different cities. It really is like a magical world that comes to life on the page. Truth be told, I finished this book entirely because of how wonderful the world building was, and I wanted to learn more about 𝕤𝕤𝕝. I wanted to learn more about the people that live here. I want to learn more about the people that colonized it. I want to learn more about the metamorphs, the original owners of this planet. I want to learn more about the political systems at play. There's these sort of 4 lords. I want to learn more about the dreaming system. Dreams are central to this book, with the lady in the center of the lady of the Isle, who gives good dreams and prophecies to people, and then the king of dreams, who seems to give bad dreams and prophecies to people, the newest of the lords. And I want to know how all of that works, and I want to dive deep into 𝕤𝕤𝕝. And yeah, 𝕤𝕤𝕝 itself is the main character of this book, and I loved 𝕤𝕤𝕝. I also really love the first part of this book, with Valentine grouping up with this group band of jugglers, and I think it's really fantastic. It's evocative and imaginative. I love all the different characters at play at this point. They're different characters and part of this juggling band that all make sense that they would be here, and the way their different personalities play off each other, from the gruff leader to the supportive mentors. It really is a fun adventure sort of story. It's very low stakes at this point, and truth be told, not a lot happens. But the interplay between the characters as they wander the land, searching for new shows to make money out by juggling, the training as he learns to juggle more. I just love the characters in this section. Like, Valentine is great here, Carabella's great here, Sleet, the 𝕬𝕠𝕠𝕜𝕜, especially their leader Zalzan, the sorcerer 𝕬𝕠𝕠𝕜𝕜, I believe his name was. It's all great. I love the little bits of intrigue that are in this section. And it takes up about the first half of the book, and at that point in the book, I was loving it. Unfortunately, now we have to get to some of the stuff I didn't really like. I mentioned how much I loved the world building, and I do. Unfortunately, it's kind of all that's here. The first half of the book feels great, setting up the plot, setting up the world that's going on. However, pretty soon it becomes apparent that that's all we're really going to be doing, and that we're not going to be giving the same level of care and detail to the plot and the characters in the second half of the book. At about the halfway point in the book, we kind of seem to stop caring about the challenges we're setting our characters, and we start a series of almost vignettes where every chapter is a new challenge that at first is given as this, uncounterable challenge, something that's going to stop the journey. But by the end of the chapter, it's solved and over, and we're moving on. And it's always solved in almost the very exact same way. And I'm not going to give any spoilers, but here's a spoiler-free kind of example. We come across a pair of political bureaucrats. They're competing with each other, but we need both of their support to continue our journey. We spend most of the chapter introducing their interpersonal conflict, the differences between them, setting up what could be a very interesting set of chapters dealing with the political climate here, learning more about the bureaucracy of this place of ℚ𝕚𝕚, learning more about our characters and how they interact with this sort of bureaucracy. But instead we have maybe 1.5, 2 pages of our main character talking to both of them, having basically the same conversation with both of them, and then we move on. And the conversation that solves every single problem that they face in this book is, "Let me through, I'm the coronel." "No, you're not." "But what if I am?" "My lord, the coronel, right this way, let me kiss your feet." That's like how 90% of the conflict is solved. And it's so boring. All the magic built in the first half of the book, and all the characters we got to know and love in the first half of the book, basically disappear in the second half. Once we get past the question of, is Valentine really Lord Valentine, which isn't a spoiler, it's on the back of the cover. Basically, once the other characters believe that he's Lord Valentine, all the intrigue leaves the plot. Every character we'd loved before basically loses all their defining traits just to become a sycophantic yes man. The gruff, great, stubborn leader basically doesn't have any lines after this, and all the ones that are just, "Yes, my lord, no, my lord, yes, my lord." And by the end of the book, I was so upset with the direction all our characters took, and all the plot points that we set up being knocked over so easily and quickly, and in the same way, that I was just so sad. Silverberg seemed to put a lot of effort into creating this really interesting plot, with great antagonists, a pretty good protagonist, a great supporting cast, and then just decides he doesn't care about it in the second half, it seems, and we just rush to a conclusion. To be fair, the final couple chapters are pretty good again, but they're nowhere up to the promise that I was really hoping for. And yeah, as I said, I'm just really disappointed with the direction all our characters took. I really loved all of our characters. There's a couple that stay pretty good through the end. Valentine stays a fairly decent character most of the way through. The sorcerer 𝕬𝕬𝕬𝕬, I love the whole way through. But characters we met in the juggling arc, Sleet, Carabella, Zalvan, they are such interesting and unique characters right up until they accept that Valentine is the coronal, and then they just become lost in this sea of copy-paste sycophants. In the latter half of the book, we just introduce, it seems, new characters that join the group every chapter or so, that by the end, I didn't know who anyone was anymore, and it didn't matter, because they all did the exact same thing, which was whatever Valentine wanted. And maybe it's some story on the way that royalty can't have proper friends or something, but it didn't come off that way, it just came off as lazy, and I was really disappointed. As for some final thoughts, it may come off as actually a bit confusing, but I actually am excited to read the next book in the series, which I believe is a series of short stories set in the world of ℚ𝕚𝕚𝕚. And I'm hoping that gives me the more world building and maybe some better characters that I was missing from the back half of this one. If anyone's read those, I'd love you to let me know. Lord Valentine's Castle has some of the best world building I've ever read, just filled with some of the most disappointing storytelling that I've read in a very long time. And overall, I think I'm going to give it a 3 out of 10. And those 3 points are all because I love the world of ℚ𝕚𝕚𝕚. I just can't give it any more than that, because it was a slog to get through. It took me 3 weeks to get through this book, which is super slow for me. And it just wasn't very interesting by the end of it. I don't want to call it boring, but it was close. But looking forward, looking ahead, positivity. I wanted the next book I read to be something that I'm pretty sure will be a slam dunk. So I'm going with something that's been suggested to me by almost everyone. I'm going to read The Lies of 𝐓𝐢𝐦𝐿𝐴. I'm told it's a heist book, which is really exciting, and I'm really keen to read something along those lines. So if you want to get notified when I put up my review of that one, make sure to subscribe and hit that bell notification icon so you get told when I put up that video, which should be coming up in the next few weeks. There you have it, Lord Valentine's Castle. They can't all be slam dunks for everyone, can they? I'm sure people love this book, and it's just not for me. Let me know in the comments if you love the book, and how your view was better than mine. Let me know in the comments if you've read the next book in the series. I really am interested in finding out if it's kind of what I'm looking for, just more Magipaw. And if you want to check out the rest of the books in my fantasy reading challenge, like I said at the start, the playlist should be right up here. But most of all, just remember to keep reading.